Redefining Aging met Joe Novenson at the Reed House here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was established in 1872. An amazing facility for any of those that have walked through it or been to some of the...
Okay, we're here at the Reed House, Chattanooga, Tennessee, May of 2025. We have the wonderful pleasure of introducing you and listening to Joe Novenson, a very humble man. He probably don't want me to say all the things. He's a pastor. He runs an organization called BTS that has been incredibly beneficial for me. Probably 50, 60 people I meet every week. Joe, tell us a little bit about your background. I know you came from a music family. Tell us a little bit about how all that transpired.
I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and my father was the original producer of American Bandstand.
Yes, I remember that.
So my background was at the inception of the fusion of television and rock and roll. And when it began, the folks involved, I don't think, had any idea of the cultural velocity that would take place when they united those two. But my dad rode the wave of that for my early childhood into just my beginning of my teen years before it went out west to California. But my dad did not go with it at that time. So I grew up in a home that was loving and kind, but the place of God, we just didn't have a place. We would go to church formally for activities like Easter and Christmas, but there was no real place for thinking of a life integrated with faith. It just wasn't part of the way I grew up. But it's very romantic. I got to see some of the greats. I saw Jimi Hendrix live and saw the Doors live and Pink Floyd and Fleetwood Mac, and I got to see Cream and followed Eric Clapton with all the other iterations of Blind Faith, and so that was a lot of privilege, a real privilege. But again, ideas about God were just not part of our conversation or life.
Well, how did that door open?
Well, it actually happened when I tried to pick up a girl. I was at a dance, and I was 16, she was 15, and she was really the first person of faith that I ever met, and in an extended or deep way. I'm sure I met others, but she was the first person that embodied and expressed, I'll call it, kingdom beauty. I realized later that I was falling in love with Christ as much as I was falling in love with her, because she treated me, though I was very different than her, with respect and honor and kindness, even though I'll just say I was less than honorable in the way I related to her. But she never made me feel like I was less than her or a bad person. I just realized what I was going after, she was not going after. And things of the heart, and what really mattered was who a person was. And I started to fall in love with that. And I got invited to a Young Life meeting, which I'd never been to one. I was actually tricked into going to it. No one told me it had anything to do with Jesus Christ. But when I got to the meeting, I kept coming back because the girl that I met at the dance, she was there, and I kept coming, and she was obviously already a Christian. So for 1 year, I kept coming to Young Life meetings, and listening to the messages, and I didn't realize it was almost like salt on a block of ice slowly melting in my heart. And after a year, that same girl I tried to pick up at the dance invited me to go on a Young Life retreat. And all I can say is that I was ready. And Christ had softened my heart. And so when I went on that retreat, and a man named Matt Prince was speaking, he presented the gospel, and it all fit. And
well, as a teenager, you never really expected that religion would, play such a role in your life.
not even the vaguest idea that would happen. But that was in November of my junior year of high school. And the dear folks in Young Life began to teach me from the Bible, and that began my journey of faith. And I could tell that something had happened in my life. This may sound very negative, but it was really very positive. Things bothered me that had never bothered me before. Now the way I thought about this woman that I was trying to pick up at the dance, nobody had put a bony finger 3 buttons below my chin and said, "You ought to be this way with her," but I just wanted to treat her with honor. And that was really different. I don't know where that came from, other than Christ. And that was one of the first signs. I said, okay, something's going on. I don't want it to be this way exactly, but I do. I want to be different, but it feels strange, and someone was working on me.
Having the experience with your dad, did you feel like maybe the music industry was something?
Oh yeah, I wanted to go into radio and television. That's what I planned on doing. In fact, when I finished high school, I went on to Rider College and got a degree in speech and worked in the radio station. And Rider College is in the Trenton, New Jersey area, and that's between the Philadelphia and the New York market in terms of radio and television. It was perfect location, and I just was going to follow my dad. But that wasn't what happened.
And I know you are gifted in singing, so
Well, in fact, when that girl I tried to pick up, I dated for 8 years, and I asked her to marry me by writing the best song I've ever written. It almost got published. I had a guy offer to take it, and I turned it down. I didn't really know what that meant if I sold it to him. But yeah, I love to sing, play guitar, and so I asked her to marry me 8 years after I met her with a song.
And how long have you been married?
It'll be 50 years next weekend.
I love it.
I can hardly believe it's been a half a century. I don't feel 72 years old. I just don't.
You don't seem like it to me.
Now I'm talking to a man who's a gold medal athlete. So yeah, I feel more 72 than you feel 82.
83.
Okay.
Well, I know God has gifted you so much wisdom that you impart to us at our GTS meeting. And it's been a blessing to so many people. How did that all start?
Oh, goodness. When I was in my junior year of college, I was working at a radio station on campus. And at the same time, the Christian fellowship on campus was growing, and they had asked me to take a measure of servant leadership. And these two were competing, and I had to pick one or the other. And they were challenging me in the Christian fellowship to consider the fact that I may be called to the ministry, which I just thought was impossible. But their challenge was consistent enough that I decided I would, when I graduated, I'd take at least 1 year of seminary, and I would study for 1 year, and it would do me good no matter what I did. And so I called my dad, which was a very hard conversation. I said, I'm not going to go into radio and TV, at least initially. I want to go to seminary, at least test the water from what I'm hearing. And I went to Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where some of my heroes had gone, whose books I'd read, And I was absolutely thrilled with what I was learning. But I still wasn't sure I was called to the ministry. So I took the next year off, and I accepted an associate chaplain's job in Whitworth College in Spokane, Washington, where the former chaplain of my college had moved. And he said, I'll gather people to watch over you for a year, and we'll evaluate whether or not we would recommend you go on with seminary. And during that year, I married Barb, the girl I tried to pick up, and I crushed both my hands 2 months after we were married in an industrial accident. And I had to hold my hands over my head for 1 year and go through 17 surgeries. And my wife said she'd marry me for better or for worse, and she got the worst right away. But she, as I had seen as I dated her, was the most Christ-like person I'd known. She never treated me as anything less than her beloved husband. Though she had to bathe me, dress me, feed me, all my bathroom habits she had to do.
Hold your hands for
Because I had to hold my hands like this all the time. Even when I slept, I'd lay on the bed and she'd build an igloo of pillows, and I'd put my hands up like this, and she'd put another layer over them, come over, kiss me goodnight, and go out. For 1 year like that. The part of my answer to your question was, if there's any wisdom in me, I saw it embodied and expressed in Barb. And anything that I read at seminary, which was a delight, but seeing my wife embody and express kingdom beauty, listening to her think, listening to how she interpreted problems, pain. She saw life with Jesus' eyes. My kids, all three of them, will tell you, Mom's much wiser than Dad. Don't talk with Dad, talk with Mom. Because she's known Jesus much longer than me. So if there's any wisdom, it comes from having sat at the feet of Jesus by being married to someone who's much like him.
That's amazing.
So books have helped, but when you see it road tested,
Yeah.
that's what makes the difference. She's really, I'm married way up. Way up.
That's an amazing story. Well, I know you lived in a kind of a worldly upbringing. That transition to become a dedicated, devoted servant of Jesus Christ. Was it a transition? Was it an immediate thing? How did that?
Sure, not immediate. I think transition would be a better word. It came, this will be an example. Often when I would say or do something that was not exactly Christ-like, and I would say to Barb, what do you think of that? When she would get quiet, I would know I was pretty far from what I ought to be. She never said, you fool, or anything like that. She just would get quiet, and I'd go, this is not a good way to go, is it? And she'd go, I'm not sure it is something that would make the master smile. And we'd process it. So the transition was slow. and more finding I wanted more what he had said and who he was and how he thought. And like I said, I was falling in love with him while I was falling in love with her. And like an example would be when I was dating her, there were a lot of race riots going on at that time in the major cities. And it had affected Trenton, not far from our college. And when Barb got a job, she got a job in the inner city at the boys' club. And this is not an exaggeration. When I would go down to pick her up after work, I'd park the car and come out with her, and we'd be in an arc of bricks and rocks being thrown back and forth across the street. And, like I'm ready to grab her and throw her back in, and she'd say, "We're okay. We're okay. They like the boys' club. We're here to serve them. Just move to the car quickly." And I get in the car, and we shut the door, and I drive away quickly, and I stop at a stop sign. I go, "Who are you? Why did you come down here?" And her answer was, "The followers of Jesus always move to the hole in the heart of their city. And this is where the hole in the heart is. So this is where we ought to be." And it was that simple. So the danger wasn't even an issue. So I'm learning in the transition by conversations like that you don't get angry and say, "Well, America isn't the way it used to be." You move toward the hurt, and you bring Christ-like service there. And I was like, "Oh, that's what you do." And that transition came by seeing it done again and again and again by her.
And you were a pastor at probably one of the most prestigious churches here in Chattanooga, Lookout Press. And how long?
26 years.
26 years.
What an honor. And that they would even have me was really an honor.
Incredible.
Really an honor.
I know you changed a lot of lives over those years.
You and I both know that if anybody's life changed, it was Jesus.
You were just the tool he used to do it.
Yeah, I'm fond of saying I'm only a sheepdog. He's the shepherd.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Joe, those people out there that'll watch this and they are confused with the world, with the system, with all the different religions and approaches to God, how would you direct them or give them some input as to what they might do to find the truth?
Wow. Without being too involved in my answer, I would say first, truth is like a telephone pole in the Gobi Desert. It sticks out. You can ask the hardest questions, and you should. If the issue is intellectual, ask the question. Ask it of people that have known Jesus long enough to give you a cogent answer. So don't shy away from the depth of your questions. Respect them and honor them. But know this, that finally, it's not going to come down to an intellectual issue. It will really come down to a heart issue. By asking the question that I was once asked, if I could answer all of your questions positively, would you then follow Jesus? Because it's a matter of your life being given over to him. So legitimize the questions, ask them, work it through. And after you settle the intellectual questions, then you have to decide who you will follow, yourself or him. And there's much that could be said, but I think that's what I would say.
And sometimes I think God designed it. He says in his word, without faith, it's impossible to please him. So all these, you watch TV and this guy said, well, this mountain was formed 48 million years ago, all this stuff. And it sucks people into a false sense of truth. because, quote unquote, there may be supposed to be intellectual. But it takes faith, but God will allow you to have that faith.
Oh yeah, if you think about it, if you take it out of a religious word, faith, just put trust in there. That every relationship is built on trust. And Jesus did not come to the earth to live the life we cannot live and then die the death we would never want to die in order to give us the life we could never get any other way, just to make us go to a building once a week and call it church. He wants a relationship of trust where we depend upon Him for everything, day in and day out. That's what He's looking for.
That is so profound.
So that's why faith is so central.
Yes.
He wants the relationship.
That's incredible. Any other last comment you'd make to that person out there confused?
One of the things, that I've done is I look for Christians who would say something like this: make me work. I'm not just going to present to you. Bring me your questions. Let me study, and I'll get back to you. And let's talk it through and see if you find it trustworthy. Look for someone like that.
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, God bless you. I tell you, you've been a tremendous inspiration to me. I've heard a lot of your wisdom over the years. So we just pray that others that watch this video will take your advice. Get those questions. Start in the Word. Make a difference in your life. Be the biggest thing, most important thing to ever do in this life.
Amen.
God bless you, Joe.
Thank you, John.
We want to thank you for watching RedefiningAging.us. I'm John District, your host. And our goal for the series is pretty simple. We just want to enhance the quality of people's lives. So if you know of an event that you think would be one for good for us to cover, please fill out the form on our website, and not only the event and what it is, where it is, when it is, and if there's a person you know that you think would be a good person for us to do a testimony on in some event, please let us know. And if you want a fuller description of my testimony, you can either go to johndistrict.com and look under ministry, or you can go here at redefiningaging.us. We appreciate your viewership. God bless, and hope to see you on more shows.